Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to day 28 of the 31 Days of Horror. DBougie86 here again. That's right, peeps. And today, I finally get into the realm of 2005 J-horror. Yes, this one's been one that I have seen before. It's been a very long time, so it was good to revisit it finally. And that is Reincarnation. Yes, this is part of the 8 Films to Die For After Dark Horror Fest line from Lionsgate, of course. I'm not sure if, I think this is either volume 1 or 2, because I know there's like 4 volumes of this After Dark Horror Fest that actually happened. But yeah, I think this is either 1 or 2. Maybe 2, I think. Maybe, I want to say strongly that this came out during the second volume run of this line. Because there was 4, like I said before, there was like 4 volumes of these films that came out for 8 films each film. And yeah, there's some interesting ones that came out of that. Of course, Frontieros also came out of these line and this Horror Fest type thing. But Reincarnation is a Japanese horror film, of course, directed by legendary Asian horror director Takashi Shimizu. If you don't know that name, you've been sleeping under a rock with Asian horror. He is probably most famously known for creating the phenomena known as Ju-on, aka The Grudge. He also directed Maribito, Tomie Rebirth, Shock Labyrinth, numerous movies. Of course, he's probably more famous for us American audience because it was a very interesting aspect. He actually directed the American remake of The Grudge and the sequel to that one, where he took like Americans into his realm of Ju-on. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of, like, you know, this is definitely, if you know anything about Takashi Shimizu, you know what you're going to get into with Reincarnation. Pretty much the setup of this movie is this film director is actually making this new movie. He actually just casted the young actress Nasagi, I believe that's her name in the film, is there, and she's been cast as this main lead. But we find out that this movie was actually based on this terrible incidents of murders that happened at this hotel years before. And once they start filming, they actually end up going to the actual murder site of these murders, and things start to get haywire. We actually, before that even, it starts to get haywire with Nasagi's character, where she starts to see apparitions. And, you know, it also dwells into like the story of this other female character who's like a high school student, Yoko, who you know, is kind of getting involved with this also for various reasons. But this film also has some twists and turns. It actually didn't play out the way I thought it was going to be when it came into it, with the aspect of the reveal of this film. Yeah, the mystery is very subtle with this one. It's very interesting, especially when you get to the cold open, where few people get picked off right away from these aspirations that come into their realm. And pretty much, if you don't know what this film is kind of leaning towards, it's in the title of the film. That's all I'm going to give away on like the reveal of what's going on with this film. Because this film is fucking great. I actually really, really fucking love this one. The aspect of it that I really love is the atmosphere. This film's aesthetic atmosphere is bar to none. And it's a very interesting aspect to the film, where Shimizu, as a film director, is making a movie pretty much about people making a movie. You know, it's kind of that realm where you kind of appreciate cinema and its art with the horror aspects of this movie. And, you know, this film's message and its ghosts inside of it aren't really the villains of the piece, which is the aspect of it that I like. They're trying to tell the story of what happened to them through flashbacks, through haunting, through people seeing them. I love that aspect about this film, where you don't get that with a lot of like these J horror films. Usually, a lot of these J horror films are usually like, once you get cursed, you're fucked pretty much. This one, it's kind of hard to talk about the reveal of what's going on. Think about like something like Reincarnation as a title, and once you get the gist of the title of the film, you'll also get the gist of what's going on within the film. And the last few, like half an hour of this film, spellbinding horror at its finest, especially with our main lead being chased by these aspirations for a various reason that we find out. I'm not going to spoil that for you, but it ends with this haunting scene involving a fucking doll, and that aspect of it is very terrifying to me. That doll creeped me the fuck out the first time I ever seen this movie, because it usually says one line, and the line is also very important to the film, which I'm not going to give away. You have to hear it. And when I'm looking at some imagery of like this doll and this little ghost girl, all I can think to myself is, was Shimizu a fan of Ghost House? The Umberto Lenzi Cheese Fest Ghost House. But that movie kind of, kids with dolls are fucking creepy. Just staring blankly, no voice, and this weird doll. I think it was a clown in that film. This one's kind of a weird doll in this one too, with its animated face. Really great movie. I really highly enjoy this one. If you haven't seen Reincarnation and you're a fan of J-horror, I highly, highly recommend this one. It's one that spellbinded me from the get-go, and I'm a big fan of Shimizu's work. I know that Ju-On films aren't for everyone, especially with their non-linear format. This one's a little bit more linear in that sense, but it does add like that nightmare logic sense that you would get from like a Shimizu film, which is fucking fantastic. And once I see some fog going on outside this hotel, I'm like, fuck yeah, atmosphere, love it. What if I rate Reincarnation? This might be a little bit spoiler my top 10 list, but this one's very high for me. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I highly enjoyed this film for the aspects that I said. It answers a lot of questions where, what would happen after you die? And, it hits you in that aspect, what's going on within the story. Really cool film. I really enjoy this one. Check it out if you haven't. Great add-on from the 8 films to die for. Good shit. I like this line a lot. All these lines that Lionsgate put out had very interesting titles picked for them, and this one's no exception. Fucking enjoy the fuck out of this one. Alright guys, that's it for day 28. I'll be back tomorrow with another one. And it's almost time for Halloween, so I'm gonna start doing some Halloween themed movies for the last 3 days. They keep the festives alive, especially since the time we live in. We can't really do a lot of things out there in the world right now. So, that's a little spoiler what's coming up next. So, see you then. Peace.